Check one.
Do we want to do a roll call?
I know who's absent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order, and I think the first order of business, we're going to take turns, Mayor and myself, and like we did last meeting, and we'll share the chair appropriately. So I think we'll get started. In the first order of business, we want to have an approval of the November 19th minutes, and we have to have a vote on that. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything we need to correct in the minutes that we sent out, and we'll clearly accommodate anybody? Or is everybody comfortable with that?
So moved. Second.
We have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Frank and Maureen and I discussed earlier that we'd like you to join us in a moment of silence. And I think you know why. Hopefully there wasn't something else today, but we're talking about Bondi Beach, the massacre essentially there of the people out to celebrate Hanukkah, and then the shooting and the killing of the students and wounding of students at Brown. So let's please join together. All of us would ask you to do that.
Okay. Okay, we'll start off the meeting. First on the agenda is we're going to have a discussion about enrollment data, and I'm going to call on the superintendent to start for us. And we've put a lot of information together and tried to get that all out for you to look over, and so go through the presentation and be open for questions and comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have our data coordinator, Associate Principal Katrina Jensen, here with us today. She's going to go over, I put a PowerPoint on your desk that follows along with the information that you received over the couple of days ago. So Ms. Jensen, if you could just go over and, if you have any questions, obviously let her know, and hopefully she'll be able to answer those questions.
All right. All right, so the first thing I just put in here is I just listed the sources that I use, because I always feel like that's important. So for the enrollment data, it's all on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, their district profiles. And then I listed the different years, so you would know exactly where I got that. For the eligible students in the Whittier Tech community, there's this website, powerofbi, gov.us. That's where I got that information. The finance information is also from the school profiles on the Department of Ed. It is from the year 2023, and that is the last update, believe that or not. So 2024 should be out in about a month, I guess. And then the last thing is, for the Whittier Tech admissions, that is Whittier Tech data from this past summer. If you want anything, I can go over that too, but that's the sources that I use. So the next thing is, I just started with the high schools and their enrollment over the last 5 years. I gave you the average enrollment, which are in blue, and then in the last 5 years, what has happened to the high schools? Have they increased or decreased enrollment, and by how much? So as you can tell, all of the high schools except Haverhill High and Whittier Tech have decreased enrollment. And 4 of them have double digits of a decrease. The next slide is from that Power of BI. I think someone had, maybe Bernie had started this last time. The only differences you'll see here are the updated numbers from the summer versus he was using April 2025 numbers, and I used the summer. So the first column are the students that were eligible to apply to Whittier from our sending communities. The total was 1,286. The next column is who actually applied. So out of the 1,286, only 656 students applied. 221 kids were waitlisted. 431 kids were accepted. From who actually enrolled, so 431 kids were accepted, 333 kids actually showed up on the first day of school. And that's comparing last year's 2024 of 330, excuse me. So then I just did the percentages. So the percentages there, the first one is eligible versus applied. So for example, in Amesbury, 40% of the kids that were eligible applied. For Ipswich, 16%. For Newburyport, 8%. The next column is who applied, got accepted. So 60% of the kids in Amesbury got accepted, 72% from Georgetown, 71% from Merrimack. The next column is who actually came from being eligible. So only 18% came from the eligibility, 20% from Georgetown, 8% from Ipswich, 10% from West Newbury. The next one is they got accepted, and did they come? So Georgetown had 83%, yes they came. Ipswich 66, Newburyport 50%, Groveland 90, almost 91% of the students that got accepted actually came. Then the next column is we had done during the admissions process a look at over the last 10 years how each class of Whittier Tech was comprised of the different communities. And so for these are the averages. So for example, in the last 10 years, Amesbury averages 7.5% of the freshman class. Ipswich is 2.4%. West Newbury is less than 1%. Salisbury is 4.8%. So that is what we used to propose the apportionments for the lottery, which again was not a Whittier Tech choice. And that's how we came up with those percentages, and as you can see, they're very close to what has happened over the last 10 years. Next up is just the statistics. So basically, I just put what was in that chart, and then I just put it to numbers so you could kind of see how the bars move. So this is, the first bar is how many students were eligible. Pink is how many students applied. Yellow was how many got accepted, and the maroon is how many actually came. The next one is all the percentages, just so you can see how many, am I going too fast? No. Oh. How many kids, you know, all those percentages, again, I just put them into bar graphs so you could see. And then the last one, again, is the average over the last 10 years, and then how we came up with the apportionments for the lottery. And as you can tell with the bars, they're pretty almost identical. So then next up is just vocational schools. So now we've switched from community schools. These are all vocational schools in the state. I did not include just Aggie. So if you're just an Aggie and not a technical school, you wouldn't be found here. So again, I did 5 years. The blue is the average enrollment, and the last column is how many have increased or decreased. And as you can tell here, only 3 vocational schools have had a decrease in their enrollment. This next one, again, just shows you those figures, the 5 years. So I just put the average and the percent of increase and decrease because it's too much to put all the numbers. It would get confusing. So I just did the average and the percent of increase or decrease. This next slide, I just ordered them lowest to highest, just so you could kind of see where Whittier Tech falls. As you can see, we're above the 50-yard line as far as we have more kids than a lot of our sister schools. This is the finance information that I had gotten. So these are all the vocational schools, again from the year 2023, and what their per pupil in-district expenditure is. So as you can see, Minuteman spends $35,000. The state average is 21. Southern Worcester is 21. And then that black line is Whittier Tech at 23. So we're almost at the bottom there, just so you can see. And then I did just add again what our community per pupil expenditure is. So as you can see, Whittier and Triton are in 23s, Amesbury, Ipswich, Newburyport 22. Again, that state average, and then Haverhill, Georgetown, and Pentucket are in the 19,000s. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Looks like you did too good a job. Thank you. But
Yeah.
pause for a moment as people digest
I
this.
actually love this stuff, so.
We sat with you before,
Yep.
and we really, you know, we asked a lot of questions, the mayor and myself, and, you know, from my legislative days, I like to see the per pupil expenditures, and she put those all together, and I think they're helpful for everybody to take back to your communities and see what is actually taking place here, and the value that gets accomplished here with the numbers, I think, speak for themselves. So, thank you for putting this
Yes,
together.
absolutely.
You know what would have been helpful, when we list the other schools, the other techs, what communities do they represent?
Okay.
Like, we know our 11,
Mm-hmm.
but, when I see someone like Minuteman and what they spend, I have to say, well, it isn't Lawrence or Lowell or Haverhill.
Correct.
So, what, you know, that's of interest to me, just because I think that does make a difference when we're looking at numbers like this.
We can break that down and get that out for
Yeah.
everybody, that's
I can
very
totally
helpful.
get that.
Can I, am I live here? I mean, is this working?
You're good to go.
I think that would be data overload if you look at all these different communities, because Minuteman used to have 17, now it's got 11 communities. It's gonna be data overload. If you actually just aggregate it into the household income for each of those communities, you're gonna get to the same general issue that I think you're concerned with.
That's fine. Yeah, whatever works. you know,
Okay, so
because,
household,
I mean, obviously.
Household income, that will take, you'll have to do the math,
sorry, I like math.
so.
Great.
She's good at it.
Bernie?
Yeah, I think this is a necessary starting point. Over the weekend, I looked at the demographic trends for this area, because our time horizon is not this year or next year. It's essentially, as far as the MSBA is concerned, it's at least a 30-year time horizon, if not a 50-year time horizon. That's the requirement on the build. And if you look at the demographic trends for the area, they are pretty depressing. If you think we should, well, let me give you an example. So for Triton, which is in the process of redoing its school, the projected change in population between 2020, which is a census benchmark, which is a good number, and the projected number for 2040, there's a decline of 45% in the 15 to 19-year-old age category. So whatever we're planning, we have to kind of bear in mind that the general context is that of a very dramatically declining population base, and which is going to impact the schools in the area to a significant degree, and I assume the MSBA is very sensitive to some of these dynamics. And these numbers, and I can share these numbers as I did last time, they come from the Donahue Mass study that was used actually used for Triton.
Good.
I agree with Bernie that, because of my other title I hold, but we also, with the state government and all municipalities, I know everyone at this room, their cities and towns are doing everything they can to change the housing stock, so these numbers would be true if we stayed course, but we're not staying course, so we should, I think it should be a part of their, understanding what potentially could be, but I know that's not what we're not gonna stay this course, so we hope not, so.
I mean, on this point, it really is deeply, deeply essential. In this, we don't have the capacity to be doing that. I certainly don't. But there should be some people that do. And, I mean, I don't know if anyone at the, building authority is there, anyone in DESI, because frankly, this is the $64,000 question, and we need some outside experts to guide us on it, because this is a lot of money.
Is there an organization that, my experience was when we were looking at building projects for the public schools, there was an organization called NESDEC that did enrollment projections, and we put them under contract. They don't do it for nothing, but they do it, and they turned out to be pretty accurate, as I recall. So I don't know if there's some sister organization or brother organization for vocational school districts. Do we have some?
So it's not an outside organization. So with MSBA, you give them a number that you're looking for a possible school. They have a team and a staff that will really look at that number and look at the community, look at the census, look at school enrollment. They do a deep dive because they certainly don't want to spend money on a building. I mean, they have a vested interest in making sure that we get the number correct. So that meeting is being held on January 28th. where we will review, those numbers. Like I said the last time, we asked for a school of over 2,000, we had to peel it back, and MSBA finally agreed to 1,400, at the last project. So, that's what we're looking at. It's not, we give them the number and then we walk away and that's what we get. No, there's a very big study, there's a lot involved. They do their homework, we've done our homework, and then we come up to a number that we agree on. What will happen, or at least I can say happened the last time, is, we had the number of 1,400 and then we also had the number of 1,280, which is our current enrollment. Once you get through the feasibility study, they will tell you how much, or what the projected cost of a building would be at 1,280 or 1,400. And that's when this school building committee will really have to make a decision about how we move forward. Because that's really where the dollars are connected to a possible project.
Which I agree that this is alarming, but we also, what I understand of the MSBA, what they're gonna do is they're gonna talk to the city councils, they're gonna talk to the clerks, they're gonna talk to planning boards, they're gonna talk, cause this doesn't, there's 4 projects in Salisbury going on right now that this is not, these numbers that Bernie gave us are not calculated into that. So all these numbers are, it's reciprocal, it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And they're gonna contact all 11 of our communities, what are you building, what's in the pipeline, what's 5 years out, what's 10 years out? So all these numbers are gonna change constantly changing. So I don't think it's a big red flag, but it's something we have to be aware of, is what I would say.
Do they calculate also for perhaps increased interest in vocational schools over the course of time? Because we see trends in all of those things that you just mentioned, that there is an upward trend in vocational school applications statewide. Please.
In speaking with our colleagues here, if this means anything, there's 337 of our students.
33%.
33% of our students who applied were waitlisted. So we have that as a buffer, that percentage as a buffer. So it gives you that number.
So like 220
Right.
kids couldn't come here
Right.
because we didn't have space. So even with the decline of the school age enrollment, which I do think for individual towns and high schools, I do think that is going to be an issue. I think we are different because kids want to still come here. And I would say if we looked back, and I can certainly do that with, I bet we always turn away about a third of kids. So you have about a third of a pool that could still come here if the decline was that bad. That's 220 kids every year.
I think MSBA has I'm sorry.
Please.
I think MSBA has a balancing act that they're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
They want to make sure that we have a school building that is, sufficient for the next 50 years as far as enrollment and size, but they also have to be cognizant of the other schools in our district and make sure that what we're doing here doesn't hurt them there. So it's definitely a balancing act. I think, yes, would I love to have a school for every student that is interested and every student that applied gets in? Yes, but that would decimate some of our schools. So that's what we're trying to balance here is making sure that we have a building that is sufficient for the next 50 years and has a good enrollment, while also taking into consideration that there are other high schools that we don't want to hurt while doing this project.
The last meeting of the Haverhill School Committee, there was a presentation that the enrollments had dropped unexpectedly for this school year, and they were trying to calculate what that was going to mean in terms of the loss of dollars for the city. So we knew it firsthand just last week in Haverhill, so I understand what you're talking about there. It is, I'm gonna go 6, 7 like my grandson does all the
Oh
time.
my God.
I get that every day.
What does that
But there is, I don't know what it means. I know he likes it, and I know he likes it, and it makes my day a lot of days.
If
But
anyone watch South Park and you'll find out what
is
that
that what it is?
So just a
It's
quick
really
question.
meaningless.
I haven't gone that far yet.
Quick question, is the 200 plus students more from Haverhill?
No,
100.
overall. I was just saying
Overall?
two hundred and
Okay.
twenty-one kids were waitlisted from all the communities.
From all the communities,
Yes.
is there a roughly percentage of each community?
Yes, cause that's on that chart, so, hold on. let me go back. So, like if you go to, I know you're Salisbury, so for example, 33 kids applied,
Yep.
21 accepted, 12 were waitlisted, so like 12 of your students didn't get in,
Yep.
there was no spot, so let's just say, let me just do a quick calc, but that's about a third right there.
Yes,
So if your overall Salisbury eighth grade eligibility that year goes down by 33%, in theory, we'd still get 20 of your kids.
yep.
You know what I mean? Because they'd still apply, you just wouldn't have anyone waitlisted,
Yeah.
because they'd all get in.
So the reason why I asked that question is that's, not all communities are facing the same things.
Correct. Yes.
Like, West Newbury, only 2 got waitlisted and only 7 applied, so,
Yes.
that's in lies the problem with regional school systems.
Yes.
Each community has a different dynamic and different need. And that's what we're facing here. Cause I've talked to, a lot of my Haverhill friends have called me and want, the school bigger, but I try to tell them, I don't know if that can happen. Cause at the end of the day, we're all here, we're already charged with, we have probably one of the hardest tasks that anyone's ever faced, trying to get this building done, cause we already have a no. Outstanding, it was such a big no, and we're trying to get this to a yes. So we're gonna have to, thread the needle to get this done.
Well, if you look at item, I think it's number 5 on the agenda, both Frank and I did talk about this after the last meeting, where there were very different perspectives on the size of the building. Some would like it bigger, some were concerned about the cost of it and what that would mean for their communities. And I was hoping that, I don't know that we need a vote, but I think I've certainly been more educated by Maureen on this, that DESI is going to be the one, or the MSBA, to determine pretty much the size of the school. And I didn't want us to be working on another plane from the RAC, because those are the people who are going to determine, in many ways, what the willingness to pay is from the communities. And it does seem that it would be good if we were to say that we were going to work together concurrently with the RAC, and be educated from MSBA as to the number, but that if we were to shoot over the 1,500 that they were talking about, I don't think that kind of differentiation would be helpful to this overall process of what you just mentioned, getting to the yes. So that I don't know that we need to vote on it unless somebody would insist that what I just said is not what we wanna do, and then I think we should discuss it. But I think it'd be best if we were to comfort ourselves for now with our role, which was to come later, let the RAC do its job, and then work with MSBA to determine the size within a range, and I guess also the configuration, what types of interior spaces that are needed for the best educational opportunities for the students who come here. That's what seemed, from the last meeting, it didn't want us to go forward, just wondering where we were all going with the size of this thing. And I think that we talked about that, and we both would like your opinions as to, we could take a vote. I'm not sure we need a vote, because, but if there's no objection to that, then let's just discuss it. If you have any other opinions, and see where we stand in a few minutes, to see if we can live within the limits that the RAC is going to determine and DESI is going to determine, and try to make it the very best building that we can, and then sell that to the communities, the people in the communities, so that we can get to that yes on this next phase of it.
So, let me clarify this. You're looking for a motion of a number of students?
Not really, I thought we probably should do that.
Okay.
But I think if we're of the general mindset that I've just described, At this stage, maybe a vote isn't necessary, just a general sense of if somebody were to object that tonight, I would simply say, the ayes have it, and we're all within the same mindset, which I think is what we want to be, rather than come up with a number that we really don't have the ability to back up with money or with the application procedure through the MSBA.
So I'd like to
Go ahead.
make a motion that we try to do 1,500.
Second.
That's what we could work towards, 1,500,
And that would be a cap.
and that would be the cap.
I have no problem. We have a
Mike,
second.
Second it.
Discussion? Any further discussion? Dick?
This is gonna come down to money. Cost, money, skilled help. I know some people don't want a new building, you know, the general public might not want a new building. We still need this help, we still need these craftsmen. These prices are not going down. Lexington, and I know I was just talking to somebody recently in here, Lexington, 660 million. All right, Lexington has money, all right. Not like we, you know, Haverhill and around here, this area, right? These costs are still by the square foot, it still costs a lot of money. What are we gonna do in the future when we need plumbers, electricians, machinists, all the different trades that we need, you know? We can't just say we don't want them. You know, 1,500 might be a good number. This is all a crap shot, whatever numbers we use, whether it's 12, 15, 19. Desi already has their mind pretty much made up in how much money they wanna spend, all right? This number, and I hope we can get down to Northern Essex and utilize some of their buildings and utilize everything down there to keep these costs down. But there is gonna be a cost, but the numbers of how many kids are gonna come in here, when you have 100 to 300 kids on a waiting list that wanna get in here, these schools aren't going down. You know, if you look at the night school that comes in here, and I don't know what those numbers are, but I know they're high, and these kids have to come here 3 to 5 years to get their license, all right? So, in 10 years from now, there's gonna be the same type of group, they gotta come in here to get their license, it's gonna take 3 to 5 years. And it all goes to a cost, you know? So I don't know how we come up with a number, that we can all live with. You know, you ask 20 people, you're gonna come up with 20 different numbers for that.
Through you, Chair. Chris, how many square foot is this building, and how many students do you have right now?
I wanna say 350,000 square feet, and we have, approximately 280, 1280.
Could you put 1,500 students in this building?
It would be a struggle.
So if you figure right now, cost for a building like this is between $1,000 and $1,200 a square foot. Do the math. We were already told no at $442 million. So just asking for 1,500 is a stretch. We're gonna be going over the 442 that the people already told us no at. So I think trying to plan for 1,500 is, we're gonna have to sell. And in hopes that NECO has space that maybe we can put some of those 1,500 students in, or downsize it, put the administrative staff in some buildings, or we're gonna have to get creative. I mean, at those numbers, we're gonna be over $500 million. And the people already said no at 442. You gotta keep that in mind too.
Good.
I'll throw this out there, just because we're talking about building the population, the size of the growing population and all that. And Newbury is in a weird spot because 42% of the town is unbuildable. So it'd be nice to have 3 or 4 projects
Yeah.
on the horizon. We don't have that. That said, every time I talk to people about Whittier, it's the demand is the first thing they talk about, and the demand to come to the school, and the desire to have more slots. And looking at these numbers, it's probably also more kids need to apply, not just more kids need to want to come here. So I mean, I'm with I think it's going to be a hard sell, but it has to be around 1,500. I think that just makes sense to me, even knowing full well that our population's really not going to get that much larger. just because I can't.
Kevin?
Well, I look at things through two lenses. One is the policy side, one's the politics side. From a policy side, you know, there's a lot of entities involved in making this decision. And unfortunately, you'd think the school building committee would have a lot of input, but financial reality, this and that, we really don't. You know, we're part of the process. And from a political side, you know, boy, I learned when we do something, it just, you know, the telephone game plays. And you guys voted to do this. We don't put a number to this early. It's just gonna be bad politics, all right? Cause it's just gonna create all this chatter, good and bad. And, you know, from a policy point of view, we're part of the process. We are not the deciders. So politically, if we put this out to the public that, hey, we voted 1,500, people don't know that we're not the deciders. They're gonna take this as something, as fact and this and that, and they're gonna build on it. I don't see the win here, politically, and I don't see where it makes sense policy-wise. To take a vote and to sign a number right now.
Michael?
Well, I think the reason why we have to give a number to the MSBA, that's, Maureen had to give a number to the MSBA.
Do you before the 28th?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep. I gave them 1,500.
oh, well. Doesn't need to be a vote.
I'm okay with it, Kevin. I just try to make sure Maureen can do her job.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't wanna do that, but.
So I have a related question. Does anyone have a good idea of the flexibility that can be built into one of these schools? For example, right, looking at how many seats we're gonna need 50 years from now is totally absurd. But if you build a building that has a lot more flexibility to it, then I think you have a lot more to work with. And does anyone have any sense of, you know, can you reconfigure the school depending on what the profile is of the students, you know, say 20 years from now?
Chris?
Can I say
Oh,
something?
go ahead.
Yes, right, so when you look at vocational education 50 years ago and how it looks now, we've had to make changes, a lot of changes, right? So there whatever is built has to have that flexibility as far as the vocational trade areas. What I will say is where there's little to no flexibility is the actual classroom size, right? That is very prescribed by MSBA about what kind of classroom size that you have. It is also prescribed the CTE parts of the program, but we need to keep that in mind as, you know, if we build, that you need to keep that in mind, because what looks like CAD now may look very different in 20 years.
Right.
And that's kind of where, you know, we need to have an architect that really takes that into consideration. But, you know, that's to be determined.
So I support the 1,500 number. I think it's a compromise in a lot of ways.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Richard?
The last time we built it, last time we designed it for the future. So, if you know you're gonna put an addition on this 20, 30 years down the road, 50 years down the road, you don't wanna leave a 10-foot concrete area and have to chop it all out. You'll do something a little smaller for the future, you know? And that's basically what we have to do. My only concern is DESE, or the state, you know, they're controlling what we're doing inside, all right? Like, they wouldn't, the superintendent's office, I don't even think we can't have any money in it, you have to build it free. You know, some other areas, the cafeteria, those type of things, they're restricting what we can do. And it's like, we can't even build it for the future because they don't wanna pay for it now. And that's what you're gonna be up against. It sounds crazy, but they're controlling the money. And they also told us at the beginning I might be wrong, that we were gonna get 60 to 70%. I think ours dropped all the way down to 40%, if not less.
So there are things that are reimbursable with
And things that
MSBA,
aren't.
and there are things that are not. Because we're a regional school, the superintendent's office, there's, the regional part of our school, admin is not reimbursable. I believe the SRO is not reimbursable. So there are many things that are not reimbursable, as you go through. But that's where, this team is really gonna have to make some tough decisions about what is worth, is this worth not getting reimbursed? Is this not worth getting reimbursed?
Well, site work was
Right. And that-
50 to $100 million
Right.
that we had to pick up ourselves. It wasn't even, how do you build a building without doing site work?
The
And they don't
athletic
wanna give
fields
us any
learning
money.
it too. The athletic fields, how can you build a school without athletic fields?
Okay, any other questions
I don't
about
have
the
a
enrollment?
question. I'm sorry, just to add on to what Maureen said, that, and also, the flexibility is very important, just remembering when we were touring some of those newer schools, vocational schools from the first project, they were already running into problems of maybe 8 years down the road that they needed to reconfigure, and the flexibility, they weren't flexible, even little things that you never think about, signage that was permanent, say maybe electrical, and now electrical is expanded where they needed more room for the electricians, and they couldn't even pull the signage off the walls, and they just built this school 8 years ago, which is fairly brand new. So that flexibility in space, and like Maureen says, with the the classroom space, that's really not negotiable, but it's very important when we get to those stages, that we have to look at that down the road, but who can plan for 50 years from now?
When we went and toured Essex. Essex is part of the state. They built that for a couple, $300-400 million, whatever the number was.
133 million.
Right, but $130 million, they went and redid half of it.
They didn't redo half of it. What they're doing is they're
ripping it
redoing
down.
Essex Aggie buildings, they're redoing. And they've increased the
But the state's picking up the tab.
Patience is a virtue. And that's what happened with that project, and I was there, so.
You were involved.
Yeah, so it's been a,
Nightmare from day one.
well, yes and no, but the state picked up the bulk of the tab, which
Money-wise,
gave
I'm
the
talking about.
taxpayers a break in those
It
communities.
still costs money.
It's still tax dollars, I understand that, but it came from a different pool.
So we do have a motion and a second, but we also understand that the January 28th meeting is going to be the one that determines this. I would entertain a motion to table this and to see if there's not a sufficient desire to table it, then we vote on it. We can postpone it or we can vote. But the way parliamentarily to do it would be for somebody to make a motion to table. Second, there'd be no more discussion. If the motion to table fails, then we should vote. I think there are two mindsets here tonight, and that's the one way to get through it by means of.
The motion to table.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor of tabling it, please raise your hand. 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. I get 8. You get 8? Yep. All right. Against? 1.
No.
This is
Oh,
against the
against-
table,
against
yeah.
it,
1,
Against
2,
it.
3.
Against table.
Yes. All right. Okay, you count that way, I'll count this. 1, 2. Did you have your hand up, Kara?
To table, yes.
To table?
Yep.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, it's tabled.
Great.
And we'll be advised, and we can take it up at our next it's tabled until the next meeting.
And you can look over all the information, the data, I mean, it's really, the numbers are what they are, and I think that she did a wonderful job, Katie, putting that
Oh, yeah, no problem.
putting it out there, so.
And I
everybody
will
can-
get the town household income, and I will get that to you for your next meeting.
It'll work out.
And despite there was a different vote on the table, I think we're in the same place, more or less. And my concern after last meeting was that we might be going different places. I think we're here together, and we wanna hear what the RAC has to say and what MSBA has to say, and, the next thing is to schedule another meeting, isn't it? Number 6 on the agenda, schedule another meeting.
Hold on, we wanna go over that letter. We
Yeah,
got-
I-
We
I'm
have to-
sorry?
We have to discuss the letter.
The letter, 'cause do we have any lawyers in the
Excuse
room?
me, I didn't put my glasses on.
Who's the attorney?
Do we have any lawyers in the room? That was my question. I was thinking about it.
What, for the attorney?
Well, because the letter is frustrating. It's like
Yeah,
an
that's why I'm
attorney,
looking for an attorney
you know,
to tell me what it
and I think,
says.
I read it and I said, what does this mean,
I
right?
read it twice, I couldn't figure it out.
And I didn't wanna, so that's why I said that to everybody, but we wanna talk about it. I think that's important.
Okay, sorry.
So, that's why we put that on there. I think there was a frustration by Jim and myself, and I know Maureen struggled with it, so we just wanted to get some comments from everybody around the table and, figure out where we're gonna go with that.
Now they contradict themselves all through the letter?
It's like a public employee just writing letters.
Giving Al's giving themselves an out is what they did through the whole thing.
Go ahead, Maureen.
So I think they're giving us an opportunity, if I read through the lines a bit, and I think that that's a good thing. As we go through a feasibility study, we have one that was just here, but now we're looking at one possibly at Northern Essex, right? So that is going to be different. And being able to take the previous study, look at what needs to be done so that we are showing our due diligence to our community. I think that's really important this time around, that we almost have a comparison of whatever is going to happen on this new study. And I think that that's gonna be really beneficial.
That's it, we talked about at that little meeting, which is very important. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Yes, I assume you're gonna get some clarification on that meeting on the 28th?
Not about that letter. The meeting on the 28th is really about enrollment.
Okay, so we're just gonna kinda,
I think once we have an OPM,
I think we wanna make sure we have some feedback from all of you about that, the new feasibility study and what it will cost to
okay.
move up there on the 18 acres, and I think that's the confusion that we got from the letter.
Again, I look for clarification.
Yep,
So we have the feasibility study that was already done, that we can use, in contrast to a new feasibility study at Northern Essex. So we're not losing the old feasibility study because it didn't include Northern Essex. But we have no choice but to do a feasibility study that includes Northern Essex. Is that the way this is going?
yes, and I do think they'll allow us to use certain parts of the previous feasibility study, because, when I think about the dirt, right? The dirt doesn't change. If there was a study done on the dirt dirt at Whittier Tech doesn't change, so that would be possibly something. But this is something that our owner's project manager that this committee will hire, I think that will have to really take a deep dive into that work.
Well, because this is a $500,000 question?
It's
I mean,
more.
whether we have to go back and do a complete feasibility study on this property, or whether we use elements of it.
I'm
It is-
reading between the lines. They did
the
not say no.
question was elements, I
They did
think
not say
you hit it right
yes.
on the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point.
I took the letter, and maybe I'm wrong, but that we can use the study, needs to be updated for anything related to the 4 phases in the Whittier side. And yes, Northern Essex needs to be a new study. And I think that's significantly different than the original interpretation of a full study with 2 different things happening. But that was my take. I thought it was actually somewhat positive, but not
Yeah,
very
I-
clear.
Right, not clear. And I think people need it to be clear for their communities. I think that's the,
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that letter is something you would argue with like lawyers would have fun with us.
Mhm.
We need a letter that's in black and white, this
that's
is what it
the
means,
point.
no one is disagreeing.
When Maureen was just talking about the OPM, the owner's project manager, I believe ours was 450 to 500,000. Then we hired the architect, which was about $1 million, all right? Those are the 2 key things we have to do. Now, we can use some of the old data, on the feasibility, so maybe it might not be 450, 500,000, maybe we get it done a lot less. Cause there might be a lot less things looking at over there in northern Essex, cause we've got existing buildings, but we don't know what extent it is to look into them buildings for what we need here. Cause we need shops over there. We can use classrooms, but it's where the shops are. That's where a lot of the money is.
Bernie.
Yes, I had, oops.
Good catch, oh, good catch.
I got you.
Yeah, thank you. I had looked at the previous feasibility studies and was not happy at all. I looked at the 2014, 2015 study, which was the original one, which and compared that to the more recent feasibility study, and found significant. I'm not construction. I don't have a construction background. Obviously, I have a numbers background, but I had major issues with the what I saw as an inflated cost of redoing this campus, this school, dramatically so. And some of those concerns have essentially manifested themselves in actually the repair of certain key systems, such as the wastewater treatment plant, which was originally estimated at close to 12 million, and now is looking at Weston and Sampson's estimate came in at 600,000. So I think our communities deserve a full assessment of the options, both this existing campus and the Northern Essex campus. I do not believe the last feasibility study, which was really targeted and designed around redoing this building completely. Basically tear down and rebuild. That's my skeptical view of what had actually taken place.
We have a tour scheduled, excuse me, Frank, for one moment. We have a tour scheduled for the 15th of January, conducted by Mr. Hardy.
Yep.
I plan to be there. I hope that you will and others. I'd like to hear what he has to say about, we won't get numbers, but we'll get a clear sense of what he thinks the needs are, and probably some summary of what he thinks the possibilities are for repair. I certainly want to know that too. I think everybody wants to know that too.
Back to what you were talking about, the treatment plant. I've learned a lot going through what we did there. We hired Weston and Sampson this summer for, I believe, $100,000 or $110,000. Am I correct? To go inside our tank, which you don't want to go. I don't want to go. Nobody really wants to
I've
go
been
inside that tank. So they found a day, and they had to be scheduled and rearranged different times. We wanted to do it through the April vacation, if I'm not mistaken. Well, anyways, we had them do it this summer. They went in there. They were kind of surprised that inside that tank that we have to go out there isn't as bad as we thought. So we could get 5 more years, we could get 10 more years. However, we've got to spend some money in there, whether it's $200,000 or $2 million over the next 2 or 3 years to keep that going, so we can get 5 to 10 years out of it. We're not just pulling those numbers out of the sky.
No, I read the Weston
I
and
read that-
Sampson report.
I read the report
So I know
many a
what their
times.
brief was as well. Instead of their brief being 30 years, it was for 10 years.
Okay.
So it should have been for 30 years. That should have been their brief. If you'd already hired them and they're completely qualified engineers and
Okay,
we
but
use
now
them
they
as well.
want, now that 100,000, I believe, has already been taken care of. Now they want another 500,000 or 600,000 to go forward to manage this thing for the next
No,
2 or 3
no,
years.
No, their estimate came in
That-
at 600,000 with significant contingencies tied into it.
I
Tied
don't
into
believe-
it.
No,
That
it's
was-
gonna
that
cost
was
you
their
more than
report.
600. Their management fee might only cost 500,000 to 600,000, But to do the work, it's gonna be $1.5 to 2 million.
That's not what they said.
Well, they didn't give us the numbers yet, that's why. I've talked to some people.
Okay. Anybody else comments on feasibility?
I would recommend people look at the Wesson and Sampson study as a kind of a proof point in terms of looking at the old estimates, the previous estimates from left field for redoing the building.
Mike?
On the feasibility study, I'll just say, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves until we hire OPM. The other one's gonna be in charge of all this. So, I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves on the feasibility study. That's just my opinion.
But I think we're forming questions that we
Yeah.
will wanna ask the OPM, and we're coming up with the background information that, yeah.
And a
If
lot
you
of
have
was
time,
sent to
Chair,
us.
I'd like to talk about the OPM real quick, maybe at the end of the meeting or something. Cause I
That-
think we
that'd
should be talking about that at some point. We gotta start trying to hire an OPM.
All right.
Just to clarify, why we brought up the letter is because of the confusion in the letter, and we wanted to get clarification on it, because as you move forward, we have to have a reliable feasibility study to work with, and I think that's why we were confused on that letter. That's why that was brought up.
I absolutely agree that the letter is confusing.
Yeah.
And
I think we'll take Mike's interpretation of it and move ahead as if we can do something of what we want, and, let them tell us when we can.
I think we also gotta remember the genesis of why that letter was created was from the municipality leaders trying to save money.
Right.
That's why it was generated.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
But the
makes it-
point of it as to whether a new study would save money on the building and all of
Because
that's,
some of
those
them-
questions have to be asked, I
If,
think, yeah.
if Maureen or the school has to go for money in front of towns, they're gonna have to get that past town meetings.
Yeah.
City council's a lot easier to get money appropriated.
Not the one not the one I was used to.
I gotta, all I have to say
He was
is,
there.
We'll take our open meeting.
He was there.
Kevin?
Quick question, just clarification, the, issue is, not, well, the issue is, making our RAC committee satisfied, happy. I mean, that is the issue right in front of us. So where are we with that in terms, I mean, they're the ones that are gonna look for the clarification, how are they gonna get it?
Relative to what now, the clarification?
The letter from,
Okay.
you know, the building authority.
So the first RAC meeting is Wednesday.
Okay,
And
that answers that
they're
question.
gonna look at that as well, so.
I will be attending, it's at 10 o'clock at NECO, so.
We'll be hitting that ball over there, right? That's answer that question.
Okay.
But I think we have got a good sense of it, that there are some opportunities here to do what we really want to see done, and we just have to be clear next time around, which we'll talk about in a moment, as to what, go ahead, what do we got?
The future meeting dates.
Next, is number 6, future meeting dates. We have the tour date already, I think.
Is 15th, 11 o'clock?
Yep, 15th at 11, January 15th. I will send out an invitation to everybody, so that it can be put in your calendar. If you can't make it, just let me know through that
What time
invitation.
did we have that set up for?
11 o'clock.
Thank you.
As far as future meeting dates, you know, I will, once I have the meeting with MSBA on January 28th, I will forward you a letter to let you know where they stand with that and where they were as far as numbers go. I don't, at this point, think we need to have a meeting date on the books until we know if we're gonna go into feasibility. We don't even at this point know if we're gonna go into feasibility until the end of April. So,
That's fine.
and if we do need a meeting, you know, I'll definitely reach out to the chairs and
All right.
and ask. to put
So there's
something together.
nothing that we can do one way or another to determine whether we go into feasibility, this group?
Nope, not this group. School committee will determine.
Well, I think for this group, we've put the most important things out on the table, so everybody's been able to talk about it and discuss and understand. Does everyone understand what we just said about, won't be a meeting until
Till
we get a little
April-ish.
direction? Okay.
April establish.
Good.
And at that point, that's when, they will tell, then we know that we have feasibility, we know we have funding for it, and that's when we will be hiring an OPM, and the OPM basically will kind of take over this piece and really give us direction about how we move forward, look at the old feasibility study, and really be able to, help us with this process.
So the answer to the question about whether we can use parts of it and how will that be answered in the meeting?
Well, they have relationships with MSBA.
Okay.
They probably can understand this letter better than we can. So that's the hope anyway. But I read it as being very hopeful. It wasn't a no, so. Alright, so January 15th at 11, I'll send a meeting, an invitation to you, over the next couple of days, and then.
That somebody wanted, was it you, Kevin, they wanted to discuss something at this meeting?
Oh, no, it was
No,
Mike.
I was
Mike,
just
okay,
talking
yeah.
about
I heard that, but just
the
wanted to ignore
OPM,
it.
but Maureen
She
pretty
answered
much
it.
said what I wanted to say,
Okay.
because the OPM's gonna control 90% of what we do, so.
Okay, is there any other new business? Anything anybody wants to touch base on that we didn't touch?
Happy holidays.
Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
Take a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a wonderful holiday.